Well, hello again. I was just having this amazing conversation with my inner circle members. Those are the members of my group coaching program. And if you're interested, it's just 97 a month and you get to meet with me for 8 hours a month, just for what it's worth. And the topic that we came up with is how often our kids are actually introverted and shy. And I know that there are kids that are neurodiverse that are very outgoing. So I don't want to give you the impression that I'm generalizing and putting everybody under the same umbrella. But I, as much as you might see me as extroverted when it comes to talking on stage or doing videos, I'm actually quite introverted. I like my alone time. I don't like to socialize, get together for parties and groups like that. If I do socialize, I really prefer one to one. My boys, my wife, very introverted. When I was in class in college, I did not like to speak up too much. Unless I was very excited about the topic, then I would tend to monologue, and that caused its own problems. But when I'm talking to the parents that I work with, primarily moms, and we're discussing helping the kids get ready for college or deal with problems in the schools, one thing that keeps coming up is this expectation from the schools, from other parents, that the kids be more outgoing, that they learn to put themselves out there, that they learn how to talk in front of other groups. And there was this book that came out many years ago that I highly recommend, especially if you're an introvert. The title of the book is Quiet, and the author is Susan Cain, and it's all about this extensive research she did on people who are introverted and their leadership qualities and the attributes they bring to the decision making process, impacts they've made in the world, and how culture tends to shame people that are much more quiet, that like to keep to themselves, and how it kind of looks down on people who aren't these A type personalities, who aren't extroverted, who don't show confidence by how they carry themselves. You follow me? In our culture, especially American culture, there's this bias towards people that get attention for themselves. You know, the people that are on reality shows or on TV who are famous, and people are seen as, if you're out there in sports, if you're involved, if you're the one who's front and center, they're the people that are important. They're the ones who are seen as successful. And that is absolute nonsense. You can be quiet and be successful. You can be introverted and be successful. Consider the fact that our culture right now is living in a pandemic, and we have people standing in line to get vaccines. And these vaccines, by and large, were not created by extroverts. They were created by people who exist in a lab, who are not very social, who are not looking for the limelight, who, because of their work and their research, are responsible for helping save millions of lives. And you will never know their names, and they are totally cool with that because they want to make a difference in the world on a grand scale, but they don't want a lot of publicity in the meantime. Now look at our kids. Maybe they love spending a lot of time in the library. They love thinking about things and solving problems. And they are more than happy to pass that information along to be utilized by somebody who is perfectly comfortable standing in the limelight. Steve Jobs is an example of somebody who had no problem standing on the stage and explaining the implications of all of the work that his engineers did, who did all the work building the iPhone and the iPad and coming up with this breakthrough technology that they had no interest in standing on stage to explain because they wanted to be quiet and introverted and stay in the background and solve these big problems for people like me and you and the millions of other tech users who are now implementing, utilizing these apps and everything else to solve problems in their lives, and they are content with their anonymity. But when it comes to the classroom, what do we keep telling our kids? You need to speak up. You need to put yourself out there. You need to raise your hand and be heard. That's not true. We need to allow our kids to be who they are. If they're introverted, if they're quiet, we need to allow them workarounds to allow them to be quiet. Because being an introvert doesn't necessarily equal isolation. If their only alternative is you've got to put yourself out there and go against every instinct you have, something that goes against every fiber of your being. It's either extroversion or isolation. If those are the choices, these kids are going to shut down. And that's a lot of what we're seeing because we're not giving them the option to be who they are and to find the middle ground, which is usually technology. If our kids were allowed to text a teacher or email a teacher, which of course is being much more allowed these days because of remote learning, but once our kids are back in the classroom, if they were allowed to do this as a matter of course, to text a teacher or email a teacher instead of raising their hand, this is not being lazy, folks. This is not letting our kids get away with something. This is letting our kids be who they are. It's allowing them to be introverts. Because somebody who is much more internal, much more introspective, who's much more of an observer, if you force them to be somebody other than who they are, you can cause issues. I don't want to go as far as to say it can be traumatic, but it can be harmful because you're going against their nature. I don't know how to explain it any more than that. It'll probably come up to me as soon as I hit stop in the recording. But if you are an introvert like I am, you know darn well what I'm talking about. It's like trying to squeeze yourself into a pair of jeans that doesn't fit. I don't care how much it's a requirement of the job or it's required for the assignment. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, and you can't make it. In the world that we're living in now, with hopefully an increasing embrace of diversity and different learning styles, I hope that the world opens itself up to the fact that there are different ways of being human. There are different ways of contributing. And this idea that everybody needs to be an extrovert and continue to achieve, achieve, achieve. That's a capitalist mindset. Okay. You always have to strive for the next award. Oh, there's another degree you can earn? You haven't got your PhD yet. You have to go and get that. No, you don't. I've had people over the years ask me, well, how come you're not going for your doctorate? Well, why the hell should I? I'm making a difference with my master's degree. You trying to tell me my contribution isn't good enough because I don't have PhD after my name? There are some people that actually believe that. Bryce, you should really go for your PhD. No thanks. If you want to spend 7 years in a classroom instead of in the trenches doing the work, knock yourself out. I would much rather be doing the work. That's just my attitude. I'm not going to say that you're wrong for getting your PhD. I'm saying it's wrong for me to get it. That's not my priority. That's not where I want to do my work. And I'm not about to think that my legacy is somehow going to be compromised because I don't have those letters or because I didn't have this academic distinction that you think is part of the ideal storyline of what success means. One of the things that came up in my inner circle call this morning is when you have this family narrative. You come from a very successful family where people have these achievements and this status, and they expect that this is how the family is going to look. Look at the Kennedys, for crying out loud. If you were a Kennedy and didn't go into politics, you weren't worth it. That was an expectation. You had to be in politics somehow. And if you decided not to do that, you pretty much weren't even talked about. And in some families, you're expected to go into the family business or you are expected to go to this college. And that is the story that you were expected to buy into. And maybe you were expected to be extroverted as part of that. You were expected to be on the debate team or go to law school. You follow me? And if you didn't follow that storyline, you were a disappointment to the family. If you didn't believe in this political ideal, you were a disappointment to the family. You've seen some of this play out in Congress if you're paying attention. It is absolutely absurd and abusive. when you, as a family, have this narrative that you pass down to the offspring as though you are not allowed to have your own life. You're not allowed to have your own identity or belief system. You are here to carry on the expectations of the elders, regardless of who you are. Well, I don't buy into that BS. And it was not popular with my former in laws. Let's just put it that way. The bottom line, ourselves as neurodiverse parents and our neurodiverse children have come into this world. Whether you think there's a reason for our existence or not, the reality is we are here and we are here to stay. And we show up and contribute in very unique ways. And it is not to support the status quo, which clearly doesn't work for any of us anymore. We no longer exist in a status quo world. So we need to embrace non status quo people because they can contribute a great deal in terms of teaching us a new way to be human and a new way to get things done. And a lot of those ways can be done quietly, introspectively, introvertedly. So instead of trying to make us into somebody we're not and to trying to make us into a stereotype of success, let us be who we are. Learn from us, teach us, collaborate with us. And who knows, we might just turn this world into something we never imagined. A world that is got room for all of us with all of our quirks. And if we don't smile as soon as you put the camera on us because we don't want to be vulnerable on command, leave it alone. Just let us be who we are. Get to know us on our level. You might be surprised at just how many amazing things are on the inside, but you can't force it. Be patient. That's enough for now. That's just my 2 cents. If you have any questions or want to have this conversation go further, ask me a question or make a comment. But until we talk again, thanks for being you.